Welcome to Amanda Hall Psychic here from the Gold Coast here in Australia, and we're up to workshop number 67. This week we're going to be talking about the sun in Gemini. I hope wherever you are in this amazing planet of ours, you're having an absolutely sensational day or night. So this week it's a very interesting week astrologically because the sun's in Gemini and we've just come out of the moon in Gemini, where lots of people sort of really felt the effects of the new moon in Gemini this year. It was sort of like a lot of people were sort of messaging me and contacting me and having readings and things and saying, I don't know why I can't calm down. I feel like I'm jumping all over the place. I can't ground myself in any way. So many ideas, so many thoughts, so many different things coming in and out of my mind. And I feel absolutely exhausted and wrung out like a dish rag because my mind just will not stop. And it's interesting because the new moon did have that effect over the weekend on a lot of people, where there was lots of things coming in and out of their minds. For some of us, it was about regurgitating the past and looking at, past thought patterns, past things that we were looking at and releasing and letting go. Other people, it was sort of looking at new ideas, new opportunities, things that were coming into our lives that we really wanted to sort of look at and sort of, wondering about the next 6 months in our lives, creating change and all these sort of things. So it's been a very much a Gemini time when you look at it in that way. The new moon this year really had a lot of extra energy, I think, behind it, more so than normal. It was almost like bordering on the lines of a full moon, because some people were sort of feeling sort of like the letting go part of a new moon, which is not predominantly what the new moon is about, but that's what they were experiencing. And other people were sort of saying to me, but I can't seem to switch my mind off. No matter what I do, it seems to be my mind is just continually racing and not able to gather my thoughts or get it down on paper or get the ideas down. It was like I couldn't harness them. And it's probably one of the more powerful new moons this year. And I think because there's so much stuff going on around the world at the moment, no matter where you look, I mean, we've got massacres going on, we've got weather events, we've got people that, political arenas and people sort of voicing their opinions. And you've only got to look at what's happened in the last 24, 48 hours in England, with Donald Trump being there and people protesting and making placards and things like that. It's like people are really wanting to get their opinion heard, get the message out there that I'm not happy about this, or I don't like you as a leader, or I'm not happy with the direction that you're taking the world or your contribution to the world. So it's a very, very interesting time that we live in. And it's like, in some ways it's an exciting time, some ways it's an interesting time, but in some ways it's a very sad time too, because you start to question, what is the world coming to? We have a lot of these people out sort of really voicing an opinion and trying to make a difference. And then we have another section of the population that are very complacent and say, oh, well, I'll just do what I've always done, and I want change, but I'm not prepared to sort of get up and do anything about it, and then complain when things don't go the way that they wanted them to, or an election result was different to what they expected or what it should have been. And it's like a very interesting time that we live in, where there's so many complexities. There's no sort of general rule of thumb or anything that we can predict in the way that things are going to go or the outcomes that there's going to be. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, to have change or to create change in the world, we've got to have different things that rock us out of our comfort zones, because if we're very comfortable, we don't create change. So that's, really what I suppose the Gemini time of the year is about creating change. So before we get a little bit more into the workshop, I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody that's been with us on this journey over the last 67 workshops. And it's been an amazing journey, because we have been following the new moon once a month, the full moon once a month, and the sun. And we also sort of slot in around that some other psychic subjects that we talk about in workshops and things like that. So we have a fairly full program. So for those of you that might have only just joined us, I do have an actual page set up. If you look in the blurb there's a page that's actually set up where all the workshops are together, plus my other show that I do just prior to this out of the US of A, out of the Washington district, on A1R Psychic Radio on Moonstruck TV. I have a weekly show there. I've been there with those guys for 116 shows now. So, you know, there's some very interesting sort of information there where we do a card of the week. We have a little trip around the universe. And we also feature famous people astrologically, and we've had little astrological lessons and things like that on the show. And that's where I do actually take 2 callers from around the world for a free mini reading. I don't do that here on the workshop. I like to keep the workshop as an educational tool. So please don't be offended when I don't give you a shout out as your name pops up on the screen that you've joined us. If I did that, I'd lose my concentration. But what I can encourage you to do is leave your name, where you're from, tell me about the weather or what might be exciting, might be happening in your world this week. How are you handling the sun in Gemini? How did you handle the new moon in Gemini? We'd love to share your little stories, and I'm happy to answer any question that relates to the workshop at hand. I will not answer any other question. I do not give away free or complimentary readings. That happens over on my other show. But I'm happy to answer any question that you might have about, you know, you might have a query about the sun in Gemini. I'm more than happy to answer that for you. But bear in mind, it will be on the public wall. It will be for public display. There will be no personal messages answered in my inbox. That, you know, if there's something that you want a question answered, please put it on this segment. So we've got the T's and C's out of the road. So let's move on to the sun in Gemini. Now, for those of you that are familiar with astrology, you know, close your ears for this next bit because it might be a bit boring and monotonous. But for some of you that might be new to the subject, the sun sign is what happens 12 times a year. The sun moves from one sign to the other, and it doesn't start at the beginning of January. It actually starts in March. And the first sign of the zodiac is Aries. So the sun stays in a sign anywhere from, it can get into the sign anywhere as early as the 16th of the month or as late as the 26th. The average time is somewhere around the 20th to the 22nd of each month. Now, it depends on the Earth's wobble and how quickly or how late the sun moves in that sign this year. We're up to the sign of Gemini, which is actually the 3rd sign in the zodiac. So the Gemini time of the year is a restless time of the year. It doesn't matter what star sign that you are born under, and your star sign or zodiac sign is, or your sun sign is determined by the day of your birth. It has nothing to do with the time of your birth, the location of your birth. It is purely the date of your birth. So if you were born on the 4th of June in any year, you would definitely be a Gemini, because the sun would be well and truly in the energy of Gemini. Now, it doesn't matter what star sign we all are still influenced of where the sun is for that month. It flavors or puts a layer over our lives for each and every one of us. Now, the Gemini energy to me is an air sign. It's about, and it's technically an air sign in astrology terms, it's a time of communication, of ideas, of things not being fixed and rigid, of learning to be a little bit more flexible, versatile. It's the time of change. It's the time when sometimes we might feel as if everything in our lives is moving too fast. We can't ground anything. Because bearing in mind, it's just come out of the sign of Taurus, where that was an earth sign, where everything was very solid, practical, grounded. We felt a little bit slower. We were able to sort of harness the energy. We were able to sort of steer the ship, so to speak. Now that it's gone into Gemini, everything's sort of, it's like a free-for-all. All of a sudden, the energy's all broken up. Ideas are coming and going. Communication's happening. Arguments are happening. People are coming up with ideas, good, bad, and indifferent. And for some of us, it's sort of like, oh, dear, I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. I sort of just want to stop the merry-go-round. I want to get off for a minute. And that's all well and fine. And I think there's, you know, it doesn't matter who you are or how strong you are. There's certain times in our lives where we can feel a little bit overwhelmed, and we can feel as if everything's sort of giddy and we just want it to slow down a little bit. But on the upswing of that is, it's breaking up the old habit patterns. It's breaking up those big, hard lumps of concrete and saying to you, okay, there may be a different way of approaching this. There may be a different way of looking at this. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? It doesn't mean that we've got to take on board every idea that comes into our head, but we can certainly take note of it and go back and explore it a little bit later and say yes or no, rule it in or rule it out. but it's about showing us that there is other options. Now, for some people, this is an incredibly restless time of the year where they just don't feel that they can sort of settle or feel grounded in any way. And some people sort of find it's a time of the year where they start to look at what's happening in their personal universe. Okay, we're halfway through the year. What have I done? What have I achieved? What do I still hope to achieve this year? So they get a renewed sort of sense of direction. It's almost like a second, New Year's resolution comes along, get the list out and have a look at it and see what I've achieved and what I haven't achieved, and maybe we'll cross all that out and start again. But that's okay. It's sort of like that halfway point where we're sort of looking at or gauging how far we've come or what we need to achieve to complete in this year. So it can be a time of great pressure, but it can also be a very liberating time. It's the time when I think communication is paramount, and not does that necessarily mean that everybody's got their listening ears on and listening to your bright ideas or what you believe to be a bright idea, but it be a time when, if we take the time to listen to what other people have got to say, maybe just one or two words out of that might be the trigger for a thought pattern for us to put us onto a different path, and they don't even realize that they've given us that great epiphany moment that we've been searching for. So it's a time of great change, but I also feel it's a time of great freedom. And it's interesting because I'm a Sagittarian, so it's the exact opposite sign to me. And a lot of times when the energy's in the opposite sign to you, you sort of feel at your lowest ebb. A lot of people used to say to me, oh, it's 6 months from my birthday and I feel like I've been run over by a steamroller. And that can be that case because you're sort of, just sort of regurgitating and looking at what you've achieved since your birthday and how are things going and are you right on cue for where you want to be. But for other people, it can be a very exciting time because they think, well, okay, you're being pushed and pulled in so many different directions that you start to look at what's important and what you can let go of, and sort of gives you a renewed enthusiasm or confidence as you head towards the next 6 months in your life. So for whatever way that it's working for you, that's fine. It's an individual thing. There's no one size fits all. And I think that's one of the first things I learned in astrology. Even though we do try and divide the population into 12, in those 12 sections of the population where people are born under their sun sign, it is always only ever a guide. These are guideline words that can apply to the majority of people under a particular sign, or can be as varied as that. But this is sort of like our basic ABCs, and then we add and subtract to that. And the sun sign is only 1/10 of us. So, people say to me, oh, I'm not very much like my sun sign. Well, you may not necessarily be very much like your sun sign because that might be the only planet you have in that energy. And you might have 3 or 4 planets in another sign that you'll have predominantly more that energy than your sun sign. So a sun sign is only a guideline. You will still have some traits of your own sun sign regardless. If you are a Gemini, you will still have the ability to be versatile and changeable. Some people will be great communicators and just love to talk and love to know everything that's going on. And then you'll have other Geminis that are very quiet and sedate, still inquisitive, still like to know what's going on, but they're not so forthright or so out there in their approach to gathering knowledge. So everybody is slightly different. So the Gemini time of the year to me is a time of sparkle. It's a time of where these brilliant ideas come in. It's a time where we can reevaluate our lives and say, okay, do I keep this? Do I let go of it? Am I looking to bring in something new? What do I want to do? It's a very time of all these magical sort of ideas flickering and floating around the universe that it's sort of like, wow, can I harness this energy and bottle it for a bit later on when I might feel that I need some more. For some people, as I said, it feels a very restless time. It really sort of makes them feel uncomfortable because they like to be very much in control of where their lives are going, and they don't like to feel out of balance in any way. So for them, it's a very stressful time. But for most of us, it's a very exciting time where we're halfway through the year, we start reorganizing, reinventing ourselves, and sort of, head towards the next 6 months of this year and sort of, charging forward. So if we're going to work with a candle, obviously we'd be working with the Gemini candle. But what I'd be liking to do, or suggesting that you do when you're working with the Gemini energy, is write yourself a list of maybe new things you'd like to bring into your life, Or you may already have some current projects that are going on that you might be slightly stuck on. Now, if you had, say you're starting up a new business or a new idea and you've got so far and now you're stuck, why not then put that down on your list? I've got a new hat making business, but I'm stuck on ideas of where to market it. Put that down on your list and ask the universe to help you, show you, guide you on what might be the suggested course of action with this. And by doing this and believing in that you will get the answers, you will be furnished with the answers. They may be abstract, they might be different, they might be out of your comfort zone. It might be showing you that maybe you've been too locked in to there's only one way I can do things. There's no new potential ways of doing things because I've always done it this way. So it's a time of being able to sort of put out there what you want. And I had someone that I spoke to the other day in a reading, and they were sort of saying to me that they were lost for ideas, that they didn't know what to do, and that they religiously worked with candles and everything. I said, well, put that on your list. Say, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I want some inspiration. I want some ideas. And it was just prior to the new moon in Gemini. And they were sort of saying that they felt like that they were just so bogged down, that they were so tight, that nothing was changing in their life, and they just didn't have any inspiration. And they were normally an ideas person. Well, I got a message from them last night saying, wow, thank you very much. That's really helped. I worked with the energy of the new moon and the Gemini new moon. And I really sort of started to focus on just breaking up the momentum. I didn't ask for anything in particular, didn't put anything new on the list, just that I wanted to see the way forward. And they said, but the first couple of days it was really heavy going, and they were letting go of lots of emotions and really feeling even more stuck than what they were. And they said by the time that the new moon hit on Sunday, they were starting to feel everything sort of breaking up. It was like taking another layer of clothing off, that you were starting to feel more movement, starting to feel freer. And they sort of said to me, by the time that the new moon had gone through the major part of its cycle and was on the waning part of it, they all of a sudden 3 new ideas had popped into their head about how to move their life forward. And they were really starting to feel that they had the inspiration back again. And that's how quickly the moon can move, or the sun can move, when you believe in what you're doing. And working with candles, you have to really believe in what you're doing. Whether you're a person that writes things and puts them on a vision board and puts it up on the wall or puts it up on the fridge or whatever, you're still setting the intent. And that's exactly what we're doing with candles. We're setting the intent, the purpose and the direction for what we need in our lives. So if you're looking to bring in new things, or you're looking for new ideas, or you want to sort of, elaborate on what you're doing, then set the intent for that. So this week we're working with the Sun in Gemini candle. So this would be, I'd like to write down at least 3 things I'd like to attract into my life. I'd like the candle burner for 15 minutes to 2 hours a day, reading out aloud before you light the candle what your intent is, what is on your list. So then you burn that for the next 7 days. So doing that, working with the candle for the 15 minutes to 2 hours a day. I like to sit with my candle. That's my meditation time. I sit there and watch the flicker of the flame, and just always have a pen and a pad next to me in case some idea or some inspiration comes towards me, that I know exactly what's sort of happening, or the reasons why I'm being shared information from my spirit guides at that time. For those of you that don't have the room for an extra large candle, we do have a gift box set that you'll get about a 15-hour burn time out of each one of these little candles. There's 28 in our range. This week I've made up the gift box set of the 3 Gemini candles, but you can choose any that you'd like to make up your gift box. For those of you that don't want to work with a candle, don't want to work with a flame, can't work with flames because you've got children or pets or things like that in your life, you can pick up a melt warmer at the supermarket, fairly inexpensive. You take 2 teaspoons of your wax at the beginning of your 7-day cycle, then add half a teaspoon a day. You can leave your melt warmer going all day. So it's something that you can flick on, sit there with it for at least, I like to say at least focus on 15 minutes if you can a day. Read your list out aloud, pop it under your melt warmer, pop that on a coaster, never directly on the furniture. That way we don't have any scorching of furniture with candles being too hot and things like that. And it also, I think, protects your melt warmer and protects your candles from the changes in temperature that we're experiencing. So that's my suggestion with that sort of thing. And if we get into the habit of working with candles and setting our intent, we start to make our lives a lot better. So because it's the end of the financial year in Australia, I'm actually having an end of financial year sale. So if you want to stock up on your candles, now's the perfect time. They've been really well reduced so that you can make it affordable for everybody. So head across to my website, www.amandahallpsychic.com.au, and you'll find that all our products, all our candles are on sale at the moment for the end of the financial year sale. I'm not giving a discount, and my readings are not on sale, and neither are my astrology sessions, because that takes a lot of energy out of me. But all our products and other things, candles, jewelry, those crystals, those sort of things are reduced at the moment for the end of the financial year sale. And we offer free post here in Australia. And for our overseas family, we offer a flat fee, so it doesn't matter how much product you buy, you only pay the one postage price, whether it's one box of candles or 20 boxes of candles. So that's the best that we can offer for our overseas family. So it's been really fabulous talking with you again here this week. I hope you're enjoying what we're doing. If you have any suggestions of something that you would like me to talk about on the workshop series, I'm happy to explore that for you. We do have a fairly regular format, but I'm happy to talk about other things in weeks to come if there's something particular that you want to know. As I said, we've been doing this now. This is workshop number 67. So there's a workshop there for everybody, whether it's been love, wealth, protection, bringing changes into your life, healing, meditation. We've covered them all. Next week, I'm pleased to be talking about good luck. How do we improve the luck in our lives? And I think we can all do with a little bit of good luck from time to time. So please feel free to leave your name, your comments, where you're from, how the weather is, what's happening in your part of the universe. We're all one big happy family here. I will get back to you on the wall in the next 48 hours. So please feel free to leave your comments. I love to have everybody joining in and, making new friends. That's what it's all about. So until next week, have an absolutely fantastic week and enjoy the sun in Gemini. Bye for now.